Hello and welcome to the Too Much Apparently podcast. If you're new here, this is a podcast for the deeply feeling, overthinking, emotionally overloaded humans who've been told they're too much apparently. And if you're back, thanks for choosing to sit with us again.
We're Alice and Carly, two therapists who are also just sensitive weirdos trying to make sense of life, healing, and our own brains. This isn't a professional advice podcast. It's more like the messy, honest conversations that happen when you finally feel safe enough to say what you're really thinking.
This space is for people like us, the ones who've been called too sensitive, too serious, too emotional, too intense, and have spent way too long believing that it's true.
Okay, on with the episode.
Today we're talking about being too smart to be struggling. For the people who look like they've got it together from the outside, but inside it's taking everything they've got just to hold on.
Yep, this one's for the ones who seem high-achieving, articulate, self-aware, maybe even the go-to friend for advice, but are secretly running on fumes, wondering why they can't seem to get their own life together.
We'll talk about why intellect doesn't protect you from emotional pain, why being high functioning can actually hide how much you're struggling and make it harder to get help.
And how shame sneaks in when you catch yourself thinking, if only people knew, or I should be coping better.
Basically, this one's for anyone who's ever felt like they just can't adult.
So most of our listeners then.
Exactly. Let's get into it.
I think a lot of people listening will probably recognise that feeling of being praised for coping, when inside you feel like you're falling apart.
Yeah, it's strange how doing well can sometimes just mean hiding well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's hard because of how invisible these struggles can be for people.
Yeah, because we're so good at hiding it.
Yes, yeah. One of the things we spoke about there in the intro is this idea of being high functioning, and that term you can use in lots of different contexts. But when we think about, well, what do you think when you hear the phrase high functioning in this context?
So my first thought is around that's a bit of a controversial term these days, I think, high functioning, but it is one that I still relate to.
Mm.
And I suppose I think about, I think the way I think about it now is it probably reflects how I imagine other people perceive me or how other people are perceiving me, rather than a reflection on my ability to function or not. So I can look like I'm more functional than I am, I suppose is what I think. People might look at me and think, oh yeah, she's got her life together. She's doing this, she's doing that, she's doing the other. But actually what's going on behind the scenes might be very different to that. But also that I like to think of myself as high functioning, and I like to convince myself that I am functioning better than I maybe am.
Okay.
How about you? What comes up for you?
Well, firstly, I think you make a good point there about the difference between being high functioning as in you yourself are high functioning versus a perception of high functioning in terms of how other people perceive you to be in the world. And I guess then the dissonance between being perceived as high functioning, as successful, as having it all together, and inside maybe feeling the entire opposite of that.
Yeah.
So, high functioning often just means you can mask your distress really well in order to survive in the world.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it.
Well, I'm thinking about how does that compare to people who do describe themselves as high functioning and are high functioning? Or I know for myself, I'm thinking about how I'm perceived as being high functioning, but I'm also comparing myself to others who I think are high functioning, who do seem to have it all together, which is strange because I am perceived that way, but I don't. So is it that they also don't? Or is it that there are some people who can do life better? I don't really know how to phrase that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've been wondering about this recently. And I think because I spend a lot of time around people that are neurodivergent. And so I know that even when it looks like they're really like super high functioning, that actually what's going on behind the scenes is a lot of trying to stay out of burnout and feeling overwhelmed and, looping some quite difficult behaviors. I don't spend a lot of time around people that are not like that. And also as a therapist, obviously, I see a lot of people who are high functioning in a lot of ways, but they're coming to me because behind the scenes they feel like they're not coping. So yeah, I'm curious about who you've got in mind for a start.
Yeah, a couple of people in my life do come to mind. And I do think, and I'm not even meaning this actually as a diss towards myself, or am I? I don't know. I needed to catch myself there because actually, that I don't think that was true. But yeah, there are some people in my life who I do feel just cope with life better than me. But we're also quite different
Mm.
people in terms of how we interact with the world. Yeah. I personally don't think I know anyone who lives at the same level of depth that I do that also copes well with life.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it something about, I was wondering how these people that you're thinking about are in terms of their emotions. I was wondering if you
Mm.
would describe them as sensitive.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the difference.
Mm.
I think, yeah, if you're not somebody that's, that dives into that emotional depth regularly or is quite sensitive and therefore is managing lots of sensory things or emotionally kind of sensitive things, I feel like what I've just said there, I think they're the things that make it harder for me to maintain how I might come across on the surface.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it seems like, I mean, it's great for our captive audience, but it seems like we've pinned down that there are some people who seem to be able to cope with the demands that life throws at them, generally, of course. But for those of us who are more sensitive, introverted, deep, really reflective,
Mm,
philosophical, get existential, that actually coping with the demands of life and the way that life can be,
yeah.
I think takes a heavier toll on then our day to day functioning. But because we might very well have been to university or got these qualifications, have a decent job or a decent enough income, have done some things that people would maybe deem to be real big achievements or successes, whether that's
Mm.
professionally, personally, sporty, I don't know. There's so many different areas, but I just think it comes across then that we can perceive to be doing really well and having it all together.
Yeah. Do you think there's something about intelligence in there as well? Because I feel like it's not just about productivity for me. It's not just about being able to like function well. I guess referring to the title of this episode, Too Smart to Be Struggling. I think there's something in that for me as well that I was always praised for being the smart child, for getting things right and knowing the answers. And so I think for me, there's also something about I should be able to figure this out. And I think actually that's got worse as I've qualified as a therapist, that kind of
Mm.
therapist, heal thyself kind of internal monologue. Yeah, that there is that I do feel a pressure sometimes to be able to figure myself out, and that by thinking it through, I'll be able to be on top of things.
Yeah. But even if I've just gone to the doctors in the past to just talk about mental health and then, oh, what do you do? And you're like, oh, I'm a therapist. There's always like a bit of a, oh, you should be able to therapize your way out of this almost.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get what you're saying. But I do think there is a correlation between what we may call like a high achiever
Mhm.
or a perfectionist. Yes, there is high achievement from an academic perspective, but I do think there are different types of high achievers, not purely just down to academic intelligence.
Mhm.
But for anyone in whatever field where you might be a high achiever, I don't know, even if that's just completing 5 Ironmans or something, but where you're seen to like, oh, wow, to have these kind of big achievements in your life. And then I think perfectionism is rife within that community of people.
Yeah.
That again, I think that kind of lends itself into the title of the episode that if you are somebody who is seen to be successful, high achieving, you strive for excellence in what you do. I
Mhm.
think then feeling like there's a mismatch between, wow, somebody has just seen that I've got a distinction in my master's degree, but then at home, your house looks like an absolute pigsty and you've got a week's worth of dirty dishes with old food piling up and stuff like that. I think if somebody has that weird dichotomy in their life, that it can feel like such a mismatch, but also where people tend to feel like they're failing at life in some way and feel bad about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as you say that, feeling bad about themselves, I really think about the shame of it. And I feel like just the last few weeks, I've really been thinking about how when you watch some kind of like period dramas, so I'm thinking like Call the Midwife, like you'd often
Mhm.
see the housewives like cleaning their front steps, or there's a lot of emphasis on being clean, presentable, and all of that. And I think I thought we'd moved away from that, but I'm starting to realize we haven't still. That
Mm.
that still kind of pushes forward and presents in different ways. And
What do you
yeah,
mean by that?
like just I suppose I think about so I feel like you see it a lot on Instagram. Some like people will like show you like different areas of their house and things like that. And it always looks like they've got their lives together. But that kind of pressure to have it all together is still there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, instead of now people demonstrating it by, look at me stood on my front step cleaning it, it's now
Yeah.
demonstrated through social media of, look at me and
Yeah.
look at how nice and perfect
Mhm.
my house looks, and look at these cookies that I baked earlier, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this Halloween costume I stitched for my child all today, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, and what I really love is those creators that are brave enough to go, "Look, when I made this reel, this is what I showed you," but then they pan round to the rest of the room and they've just scooped all of the chaos into a corner. I
Yeah.
like it when they do that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like real content creators as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad there are people out there doing that, showing the reality of life.
yeah.
Yeah, or certainly the reality of life for most of us anyway.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that is a big part of it for me. I think the kind of I think social media is a big pressure. Even though I like to think it's not, even though I like to think that I'm above it, or I know the reality. I know it's just a highlight reel. I think it does kind of get into your brain
Mm.
that yeah, just this idea that it's possible to do it all, have it together.
Yeah. And it
Yeah,
never shows a different kind of behind the scenes in terms of maybe for even people who genuinely do have it a bit more together. It
mm,
never shows you the reasons how they've been able to have it all together, the support that they might have around them, the financial support that they might have, whether that's from partners or whether that's generational wealth, for example.
yeah,
It never seems to show how they have then been able
yeah.
to have it more together. And so we're often comparing ourselves to somebody who may have had significantly more opportunities in life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think my general take on it is that people like that, yeah, probably less trauma, probably are not as sensitive. And yeah, I think finances really can play a big part, or, or family support. Either of those can make life easier in different ways.
Yeah, it sounds strange that I've only recently actually recognized this, but growing up working class and then becoming a therapist, therapy is quite saturated with middle class therapists. And it wasn't until I entered this world and then was surrounded by more middle class people. I've obviously grown up working class, surrounded by working class people. And it wasn't until I ended up making more connections and entering into the world of middle class folks
Yeah,
that my disadvantages in life that I didn't really realize existed has more recently been pointed out to me. And it's so strange, like you can't miss what you didn't have. But
yeah,
it's only until you know that, oh, this is what some people have had in life that you then realize, oh, wow, I've had to actually battle and overcome quite a lot to get to
yeah,
where I've gotten to in a way that I just didn't realize before.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
So, thinking about this topic, how do you personally relate to it? Have you had experiences in life where you feel like you have looked fine, but actually you are sort of holding yourself together with glue and sticky tape?
Yeah, I feel like my life is generally held together by glue and sticky tape. Just, I
Yeah,
feel
that's
like that
just your
is
day to
just
day.
that's just my day to day. I had an emotionally difficult upbringing, which feels uncomfortable to say, even though, I've done a lot of work on it. So I didn't have the emotional containment growing up to learn how to manage difficult emotions, or how to ask for help, or who to ask for help. So I think probably like many people that feel like they're held together, there is a backdrop of emotional needs not being met in childhood, and having to become the one that figures it out. Yeah, is the way that I think about it. And then life has been difficult in different ways. I've been in some difficult relationships that have had a significant impact on me. And then other life things have happened. And I've got 5 children, so that's always chaos. So, yeah, I know part of why I'm struggling to talk is because I'm feeling like I don't want to have to say this. I don't want to have to share this. I want
Okay.
to maintain some of the illusion that actually maybe I have kind of got it together. And I have, I have kind of got it together. I run a home, my bills are paid, and, I'm taking on extra responsibilities. And so there is a level of having it together. I suppose there's something about your kind of perception here, isn't there? Because I look at my life and I'm like, oh my gosh, but what about this? And what about this? And what about that? But then if I was somebody who wasn't able to get a job or, wasn't able to keep on top of paying my bills or something like that, then I would be looking at someone in my position and going like, wow, how does she do that?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I just feel it feels like a very familiar feeling to me to be the way I often describe it is it feels like I'm on a treadmill that's on a setting that's just slightly too fast. So I never actually fall and land on my face, but I've always got that feeling in my stomach of like, oh my God, I'm gonna go in a second and I'm gonna fall in a second. And I don't never actually fall, but just that constant anxiety of like, trying to hold it together here.
That is such a great description.
Mm,
Yeah. I
mm.
relate a lot to that. I think that's a brilliant way to put how it feels.
Yeah, and I think an important thing to kind of for me to hold in mind when that shame does come up about this is that I challenge myself a lot. Is that I do take on a lot, and emotionally, like in terms of my emotional development and personal growth, I'm always working on like how do I improve this? How do I improve this? How do I improve this? But there
Mm.
aren't really any kind of periods of my life where I've gone like, all right, well, that's enough. I'll just kind of leave the personal development for a bit and just, I don't know, have fun or something. I'm always working on something. And I think having the emotional upbringing that I had and now having children means that the whole cycle breaking thing for me is at both sides. Is I'm kind of grieving the childhood I didn't have and the support that I needed and
Mm.
didn't get. But I'm also having to recognize, particularly with my adult children, the damage that I've inflicted on them, either out of awareness or not being careful enough, and having to kind of make amends, and particularly working on not being defensive, which is so hard. But yeah, there is that kind of double whammy there for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost where it feels like the work never ends.
Yeah. Never.
I
Yeah.
feel like there's a difference between, I don't know. On the one hand, I feel like the work does never end, but I think there's a difference from being really in the work to having a bit of a break and having a bit of a period of stability and not constantly re-examining ourselves and our life and analyzing things and feeling like we need to do this better, do that better, get here, get there. It is quite exhausting to be in that mode all the time.
You
But
get to leave that mode. You're saying that as if you get to leave the constant re-examining.
no, I'm saying no. I don't, but I'm saying I'm saying that people do and we
Oh.
should. Oh, there were so many things that you said there as you were talking. But as you were talking about your treadmill analogy, it was kind of making me think about, oh, how would I define the treadmill analogy for myself in terms of my experience in life? And I would say my treadmill is variable, but I feel like I don't have control over when it gets turned up or when it goes down a little bit. So I think the majority of my time is spent where it's a little bit too fast, like yours. I then think there are moments where somebody just whacks it up and I am basically nearly falling on my face. And then I think there are brief moments in time where it actually slows down and I think, oh, I've nailed it. I'm here. I've arrived. And then it feels like this is how it's going to be from now on.
Yeah.
Just like delude myself every time. And then it's only a short period before suddenly it's like, oh no, I'm back to it just being that bit too much fast again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
So it's,
said that, didn't I? I said that in the episode. I think it. What was the episode where I was like, I think I've cracked it.
oh yes, I think that was probably too tired for life.
Yes, it was, and I said I've cracked it, and literally the next week. No, I had not. And
Yeah.
you said, I said, "Oh, it's going to be different this time." You were like, "It won't." And I hear that now replaying in my head, like
Yeah. The
jinx
treadmill's changed too
myself.
many times that I now know it won't. Yeah. But it's hard to not be able to have that consistency or where the treadmill only speeds up a little bit or back down. But it is hard to feel like it kind of reminds me of life feeling like you're always fighting fires.
Yeah.
And just when you feel like you're finally getting the fires out, they start up over there again. And so it is hard when things are like that. And the other point that you made was where you were trying to talk openly about what life is like for you, and then you almost wanted to claw it back and keep up the illusion that you have it all together.
Mm.
And that's also really important because it's not only do other people perceive us that way, but it's often us ourselves that are trying to keep that perception up to other people as well. Like we don't want to get caught out.
Yeah.
We don't want them to find out and see what's really going on underneath for fear of how we will be judged or seen or rejected or dismissed, all of those things.
Yeah.
So it is often us that are also trying to feel like we need to keep up what feels like this facade.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, for me, it's not just about how I imagine other people are going to perceive me. It's also about how I'm perceiving myself. And I think sometimes that can be the harder bit.
Yeah.
And probably because I can judge myself more harshly. When I'm in a difficult space, I would judge myself more harshly than somebody else might judge me. And I don't want to feel that way about myself. I don't want to be back in that critical space.
No. Yeah, it's just so hard to not be critical towards ourselves because society does value productivity, because there is this inherent message that we are only valuable if we achieve, and because society praises achievement and self sufficiency. We do get rewarded and praised for being competent. Nobody gives you an award for, oh, you're doing okay. So
Yeah.
I do think then when there is just this big gap between what people see and how we feel, that ultimately creates a sense of shame.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about being special. I think there's also something in this about, I think again, it comes back to being the clever one for me, is I was the clever one. And that was what made me special. And
Hmm.
that is why people love me because I was clever. So I was
Yes.
special. And I think trying to kind of keep that up, I know when I went to secondary school, that was a shift because all of a sudden I wasn't top of the class. I was one of, I don't know, 7 or 8 other top of the class children. And then we were all kind of vying for top position. And then when you move out of school, the realms of top of the class expand then. Are you the best homemaker? Are you the best mum? Are you the best, like whatever that might be, the best therapist? Are you the best business owner? There's all these kind of different ways to be the best or be special and I think one big thing that I've really learned across the last 15, 20 years, I'm really that old, is is the joy of being ordinary.
Oh,
And I think that
wow.
would have
Yeah.
I think that would have horrified past me that I would rather fail than be average. Like being average was like the worst thing ever. But actually what I'm learning is actually being average is great.
Hmm.
Being average is where it's at. The average people are having the most fun and enjoying life and able to relax. And yeah, there's definitely
Mm.
something about that.
Yeah, gosh, hard relate, and I'm on the same journey, and again loved the way you put that about the joy of being ordinary. Wanting to be special has been really present throughout my life, and genuinely has only been in the last couple of years that I really started to try to drop that.
Yeah.
I think that came about for lots of different reasons. I think growing up neurodivergent and not realizing it, that, well, if I was different because I was special, then that would be a good reason to be different.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with Matilda. She was different, but that's because she was special and she had powers. And I longed to have powers as a child. But often the things that I was drawn to growing up were around children who were special or who were the chosen one. kind of like Harry Potter, the boy who lived. And there are so many other children's stories that run along the lines of specialty, of chosen ones, of the fated person who's going to save the world, and those kinds of things. I think it's so easy when you feel different to lean into or wanting to be different because of some sort of specialty, of some sort of real importance in the world, rather than for difference because of a bad reason. And I
Mhm.
think I clung to that idea of being special. And how I've described it to myself is, as a child, I saw being special through fantastical lenses of imagining that really I had powers and these kinds of things. As a teenager and in my early 20s, it was through wanting to become famous, wanting to become a famous actress, wanting to become a singer and a dancer. Although never like seriously pursuing it, there was kind of still a fantastical element to it as a teenager. I think wanting to achieve wasn't about academic success. So in primary school, I wanted to do well academically. In secondary school, I think because my focus was so on fitting in and belonging, success to me was about wanting to be popular, wanting to be pretty, wanting to be liked by the boys, wanting to have lots of friends and be invited to all the parties. And to me, that felt like greater success than academic success. And so I shifted in terms of what felt more important to me and pursued those things. Didn't achieve those things, but pursued them. And then when I started university, I went back to the academic side and chasing the high grades and wanting the first classes and the distinctions. And it became about wanting to be special through being the top achiever at uni. And then after graduating, it transitioned to I want to have, I'm laughing, a super popular podcast. I want to write a best selling book. I want to become famous as a therapist and be on TV. And so throughout my life stages, the way in which I wanted to chase specialness just shifted. Yeah, and it's only now at the age of, well, turning 37 this month. So at the age of nearly 37, that you think, yeah, none of that has ever brought me peace or happiness or where I finally feel enough, worthy, like I've won, I've reached it.
Yeah.
Um, because you just continually move the bar up.
What I was thinking about while you were talking is about how much loneliness and connection plays into this whole dynamic. That, so when you said about if I'm different because I'm special, then that's okay. And it made me think about the pain behind I'm different and it doesn't necessarily make me special. It's not for a special reason. It's because I have these difficulties in certain areas or whatever, that there's a real loneliness with that. And I think being a sensitive child in an emotionally immature family can really exacerbate that as well. And I suppose also because I'm thinking about where I am on my journey is like, I know, even though again, I'm doing this master's and I'm like, right, I'm definitely going to get a distinction. That's definitely what I'm going to do, even though that really doesn't need to be a priority at this point in my life. So I have the logical knowledge that path is not going to get me where I want to go. I've tried it so many times. It's not going to have the outcome I want. And so what I'm really working on at the moment is how can I allow myself to be close to people? And I think that has been behind a lot of the perfectionism and the high achieving and all of, and the high functioning as well. It's how do I do this on my own? And then if I can pull it all off and be amazing and everyone's so amazed with me, everyone will like me and will want to be close to me.
Yeah.
But actually, as I peel back the layers, what I realize is actually I'm terrified of being close to people because in the past it hasn't been safe to be close to people.
I feel like that's where success and achievement could be redefined. That
Mm,
success doesn't have to be the distinction in your masters. Success can be having really good relationships with your children.
yeah.
That success can be really taking time to care for yourself and meeting all of your needs in a
Yeah.
way that maybe you haven't in the past, and that can be a real achievement, and
Hmm.
that can mean success. Because I think so many of the things that we chase, they don't actually alter or change anything. Take you now saying there's that part of you that still wants to get the distinction in your master's. And so when I hit a big goal, so I did get a distinction in my master's, but my memory is so clear of me sitting at my graduation ceremony, walking across, doing the handshake, sitting back down, and then seeing the PhD students walk across. And all I felt was, well, I've not got a PhD though, have I?
Mm.
And rather than sitting there and feeling so proud of my achievement and thinking, look how hard I worked in that instant moment, it was, yeah, but I haven't got a PhD. And any feelings of pride or achievement that I felt literally dissolved on
Mhm.
the spot. And I also knew in that moment, if I was walking across the stage having had the PhD, there would be somebody else who got the PhD and was awarded achievement for academic success that year that I didn't get, or they got published, or their research has been picked up to be turned into a book. Like there will always be something that
Mhm.
I then have not got.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I'm sat with is my husband's brother's a professor. So even though I have that, like, oh yeah, I would love to be Dr. Chu, I know that even there's the next level of, yeah, what else? What else? What else?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I'm not a
there's always
professor.
something. Yeah, yeah. There's always something. There's always something
Yeah.
else. And I think that question of what is it that we're really looking for is
Or what
really
is it that we're
important.
protecting ourselves from
Yeah,
by trying to achieve these things? It's going to be different for everybody, isn't it? So I think it's worth anybody who relates to this asking themselves that question.
yeah,
But I certainly know for me, it's a fear of not feeling like I matter or that I am important, and then not feeling worthy or good enough, and thinking by doing those things, it protects me from feeling those things.
yeah, yeah. And I think it can sometimes for a short time, can't it? I know you said there that your kind of reaction was like, was straight away of like, oh, well, I haven't got a PhD though, have I? And I have experiences it's kind of similar to that as well. But I think sometimes I've also had experiences where weight loss is one where I've lost a lot of weight in the past and I've been like, yeah, this is great. And for a while it feels amazing. Or there might be parts of it that feel good, but then it doesn't last.
Mhm.
It's so short lived. Yeah. But I think most mental health related things really come back to the ability or not to connect with the people around you in a way that you want to connect with people.
Mhm.
And I think that feeling like you don't matter or feeling like you're not good enough is such a, like, whatever the kind of presentation is, actually, when you peel back the layers of whatever's going on, that it is that, do I matter? Am I important?
And that you can both matter and be ordinary.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. 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 Well, when I think about perfectionism, and I often say this to clients and to myself, is you can get caught up in this perfectionist, got it all together, striving, striving, striving. But actually, if I met someone who was actually perfect, I would be so intimidated. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near them. So yeah, so sometimes I think perfectionism is a way to keep people away as well,
Mm.
as much as there is that. I think there's a kind of push pull dynamic there too. Yeah.
Mm. So perfectionism leads to disconnection and isolation.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
I imagine that is probably true for people who you might consider as incredibly intelligent, the savant people.
Hmm.
I mean, we've spoken a previous episode about intellectual loneliness.
Yeah.
And so I do think that it is true. The more that you achieve,
Hmm.
the greater success that you have, I think the more it does take you away from people. And I think people then find it harder to relate to you or find you super intimidating, like you
Hmm.
said, or the
Yeah.
conversations then that you have maybe don't feel that meaningful, or yeah,
Yeah.
people just can't really relate to your life or how
Yeah.
you're living it.
Mhm. Yeah, and in another way, I think people that are perfectionists or have perfectionist tendencies can also unconsciously or maybe even consciously expect that from other people. So they hold other people to the same really high standards that they hold to themselves,
Yeah.
which the other people can't live up to because the bar's too high.
Hmm.
Um, and that then creates more distance in relationships too.
Yeah, that is certainly one thing that, oof, I'm even having feelings about admitting it because I don't like admitting it to myself.
Mm.
But I know one of the parts of me that I am really not that keen on is because I can be so critical towards myself, it does mean that I can be critical towards other people in a way that I don't mean to be, but I just am. So, take, for example, I feel like my poor partner could give you loads of examples, but one that stands out is when he renovated our bathroom and he did the whole thing himself. And I walked in and I was like, oh, wow, that's great. Oh, that's wonky.
Yeah.
Oh, that tile seems to be sticking out a bit more than that other
Mhm.
tile. I think that comes down to both being the fact that I am very sensitive to my surroundings. I see something that's a teeny bit like out of place. I mean, I'm a nightmare for doing edges on a wall when I'm painting because I can see the teeny bits. When people say, "Oh, no one's going to notice that," it's like I actually do notice. So I think I'm very perceptive to patterns in the environment and something that feels a bit off. So my eyes just are immediately drawn to something that doesn't quite fit with the overall pattern. So I think that's part of it. I naturally just see the flaws. But then because I am also a perfectionist and wanting everything to be just perfect, I see it and then I just name it straight away. And of course, for the other person who has put a lot of work in, for me to pretty quickly point out what's not perfect is not nice. And I recognize that and I'm trying to work on that within myself. It is not something that I like, but just seem to automatically do. So I'm trying to be more aware of that or keep those things to myself. Or if I do think I want to talk about it, wait and not jump straight in with that.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think that it's important to mention that wanting to achieve highly and do all of these things can seem like good, nice things, but there's that shadow side to it as well, in terms of then how that means that you can see that then in other people too. And for me, I don't think it's coming from a mean place. I think it's coming from like a protective
Mhm.
place. It's almost like because I have grown up feeling that anything other than perfection and getting it right is threatening.
Mm.
It threatens your safety in the world. It threatens your social connections and how you are perceived. I am now so finely tuned to anything that could be seen as wrong that I pick that up in myself and in others. And when I'm telling them, it's more like some in weird convoluted way I'm trying to protect them.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm actually just being critical and it doesn't feel very nice. But I think in myself, it's coming from a panicked place of, oh, I need to protect you. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't do it like that. You should do it like this.
Yeah, and I'm have a really similar process, and yeah, I think there is that protection part, and I think there's also, or at least I tell myself, like there's a growth part, like the way that I see life, kind of like how I said before, is like we constantly have to be working on the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So I think when I'm, with my husband, I'm always like he's way more laid back than me, and I'm often coming from a place of we need to work on this, we need to work on this, we need to work on this, and also with the like, and everything is urgent and it all needs to happen now, even though we don't have the capacity, we don't have like family support to help us through with it or anything like that. And I know that he finds that really overwhelming. But yeah, for me, it feels urgent and essential of like, we can't just rest on our laurels here. We've got to be next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. Although he did put a picture up for me the other day, and I haven't told him this. So sorry, Mark, if you're listening. It's not in the position that I wanted it. But but I managed to contain within myself that one, he'd put it up when I only asked him once. Thank you very much. And two,
Oh,
the picture is up and it doesn't matter. I'm still trying to convince myself of that last bit.
I
But
know.
I just
Inside, I'm
really
going,
didn't
it
want.
does. Does. It
Yeah.
does matter.
Actually, I think I'm making a bit of progress because I felt like, do I want the picture to be in the right place, or do I want to be able to not be critical about this?
It's so hard.
And next time I can be clearer when I say, please, can you put this picture up for me? Maybe I can make some pencil marks on the walls to be like, I want it here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So taking some responsibility and having it how you want.
yeah.
My favorite thing is, though, that you just told him that over the podcast.
He does listen to it as well, so I know he's going to hear it. Maybe I'll warn him because that maybe feels a bit mean to just announce it to the whole podcast and everybody else is listening. but I'm really trying. I'm really trying. And I suppose what I'm kind of holding is whatever this critical part of me is, that's not Mark's problem. That's not his issue.
Yeah. Mm.
That there's something going on there for me that I don't want to have this negative impact on him anymore.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and that I will find some way to tend to this part of me that's like, it's a few inches too high and a few inches to the left.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that does feel like progress.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to do the same.
Mm,
And it's really not easy.
mm,
So I mentioned earlier about how shame can come in and play a part in how it feels to have that dichotomy of looking successful over here, but really struggling to adult over here. And I know that's certainly how it can feel to me. It can seem so strange to be running a successful private practice all by myself now doing this podcast, and yet also have days where I can't cook for myself, struggle to get out the house, have to really psych myself up to get in the shower and those kinds of things. It just feels so weird. It's kind of like, oh, is one the real version of me and is one this false version of me? And again, feeling like I shouldn't be like that.
mm,
And I think for a lot of people, they're probably the hardest parts to admit. I mean, I follow a lot of accounts, and we spoke earlier about people being vulnerable enough to be real on social media. And the ones where people like show their big laundry piles or where they say, I've not had a shower for a week. People who are able to be so open and vulnerable about what it is they're actually dealing with every day, I just feel is so meaningful to those who would feel such like great shame about those things to realize that they're not alone and you can absolutely be an adult and be struggling to adult.
mm. Yeah.
Um, because life is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes me back to what we said in a previous episode. It might even have been the first one or two. But like that, the illusion that you can have it all together all the time and having to let go of that illusion can be quite scary. And I think what you
Yeah.
said there about, which is the real version of me, am I the one that's got it all together or am I the one that feels like a complete mess that doesn't know what they're doing with their life? There is something about recognizing that what we are shown as successful isn't the whole truth. And actually, that a lot of people that look really successful on the outside have got a whole load of things going on behind the scenes. If I think about people in very like high status jobs, like how many of them are doing drugs to stay awake or
Mhm.
drinking to cope with the stress or whatever else, completely immersed in their work and paying no attention to their families and all kinds of things like that. Yeah, like I don't think I could name a single person actually that I think of as like, yeah, they've actually got it all together.
Yeah.
Mm,
No, it's the same. And I've done a lot of reading around this and worked with a lot of clients who struggle with the exact same things that I do. And I've never met a single person who has like finally achieved something and gone, ah, now I'm happy.
yeah.
It's just not the case. It's always the strive for more. It's always being on to the next thing, struggling to just keep still.
Mm,
And inevitably, then other areas of life are going to get neglected. And also, that can seem fine when you are achieving. But what
mhm.
happens if then you fail?
Yeah, yeah,
What happens if you don't complete that race or you don't get the grade that you wanted or you don't get the part in the play?
yeah, yeah,
I don't know about you, but if there are times where I have felt that, it's almost like my whole sense of identity just crumples in.
yeah,
It's like I don't know who I am if I'm not achieving.
yeah, yeah. So how do we cope with that? I wonder how you cope with that at the moment. What do you do to support yourself with those moments of feeling like I'm not good enough or I'm not okay or I'm not being a proper adult or whatever it is that comes up for you?
Up until recently, it would be about, okay, what's the next thing that I can do that's going to make me feel good? And usually it would be coping through that stage of burnout and total collapse. And then the moment that a little bit of energy came back, I'd be on to doing something straight away. And I think that's why I've been to university 3 times. I've studied other courses alongside that. I've had multiple businesses. I've had multiple jobs where I've chased the next level up and the next level up. I've equated money and earnings with success as well. So then wanting to get the job that then pays more. So there's always been this constant thing. I remember several years ago, my therapist saying, "What would it be like to just be still?" I just remember just thinking, like, no, thank you. I don't want to just be still. So just constant movement all the time. And it's really exhausting. Now I'm at the stage where I'm trying to actively not do that. I do still get ideas in my mind, but rather than just run with them, I'm trying to sit and reflect on them. So I often think about doing a PhD. And in reality, I do think I would like to do a PhD. But when I was thinking about do I really want to do a PhD, though, I was thinking if you did the PhD, but you didn't get the certificate at the end, you didn't get the doctor title, and you did a PhD for the love of deep diving into research for 5 years, would you still do it? And I thought, oh, no, I don't think I would. Because I do actually love research, but it kind of helps me to realize that I think if I didn't have a job and I had all the money in the world, I would absolutely do a PhD with the focus not being on the outcome at the end.
Yeah.
But because I don't have the money, because I have to have a job, then actually, no, I wouldn't be doing it. The reason I would be doing it would be for the outcome at the end, not the journey. And
Yeah.
if I'm doing it for what I get at the end rather than the journey,
Mm.
then I think I'm doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Uh,
it's not that these ideas still don't plague me all the time about you could do this, you could do this. Oh my God, well, what if you did that next? I mean, I've written 12,000 words of a book. It's just been sat on my computer for several years. But so there are still these things that I do and I think about pursuing, but I try to focus a little bit more on where is that idea coming from? Why do I actually want to do that? So that I'm not just immediately going forth and doing all of these things. So that's one thing.
Yeah. Is there more things?
In terms of the difference between seeming together on the outside and not feeling together inside, that is still something that I'm trying to work on my feelings around that. It does still bring about feelings of shame and embarrassment. I do still struggle with comparing myself to other people, but I'm just trying to not let that then affect my behavior. So if I'm comparing myself to others, if I get thoughts of, oh, but if I was more successful by looking prettier or having a certain body type or getting that doctor before my name or publishing a book and being a best-selling author, when those thoughts still come up for me, I don't think they'll ever go away because I am someone who also likes a challenge, likes to do new things, gets really sucked in and drawn into new ideas. So I don't think those things will ever go away, but I do think it's about just trying to examine those things when they come up rather than just going ahead with it. So when I'm feeling a sense of shame when I'm comparing myself to other people, that's more likely when, oh, but if you just did this, you'll feel better. If you just do that, you'll feel better. So I'm trying to just sit with those feelings and not let them then influence my
Yeah.
behavior, whilst also trying to challenge them by the brilliant line that you said earlier about finding the joy in the ordinary. Because ultimately, I've realized that's what life's about.
Mm. Yeah.
What about for yourself? What would you say?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just caught up in a little fantasy of making apple crumble for some reason. That's what came to mind when you said back to me about the joy of being ordinary. It's just the joy of like, yeah, a Sunday afternoon making an apple crumble and you've had your Sunday dinner and then you've got this homemade apple crumble that you've made and you just with your family and like, oh, that's nice, isn't it? Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's about that internal voice. It's really about what is going on with that internal voice for me. And I feel like a few years ago, I was in a really good place with being really like self compassionate and being gentle with myself and not expecting too much of myself and being able to soothe myself when I was feeling not okay about myself. But then I think the kind of difficulties in the relationship with my mum and becoming estranged have like almost set me back. There's so much, I've felt so really gone through a process of it must be me that's the problem and feeling really guilty about making the decision to become estranged. That's almost like strengthened my inner critic. And so it's quite easy for me to get into a space of this is why people find you difficult to be around. So having to really work on the kind of nurturing parent inner voice again, which is a challenge. And, it feels really difficult, particularly when this is what a lot of my work is based around. It's what I kind of advertise my practice as being about, is about that self-loathing and inner criticism and things like that. It's been really difficult to really recognize that I have been back in a place of not liking myself very much. But the fact that I'm able to say this now is because I feel like I'm coming out the other side a little bit, and I'm really realizing, like, oh, okay, this is what's happened and this is why it's happening. But yeah, I think that there's something about the way that we talk to ourselves that has such a big impact on that. Are you going to stay stuck in shame? Because if you can't criticize yourself to a place where you like yourself, that's never going to happen.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, really kind of working on, so I call it setting internal boundaries. So I set boundaries with my inner critic, and I'll be like, no, that's not, I don't need that right now. That's not helpful. I don't need that right now. Thank you. And really trying to work on building up, what would a nurturing parent say? What would
Mm.
a really healthy parent say in this kind of situation? And that's hard if you don't have that as a blueprint. It is hard to know what a healthy parent would say. And I just cannot stand when people say, "Well, what would you say to a client?" Oh, I really, really hate that. But yeah, there's something really important about being kind and being gentle with yourself, and recognizing that the critical voice that tells you that it's being hard on you to make you better is actually, that's what's driving the shame. It's not driving the drive, if that makes sense.
It's
The
not
drive is
driving the
there.
drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was so great to hear your journey through that. I'm pleased that you were able to share that because even though hearing your struggles with liking yourself fills me with a sadness and just disbelief of how could you not like yourself? I totally understand how we all have our stuff. And it's just nice to hear that the journey that you've described there in terms of how you're moving your way through that. And yeah, trying to reparent yourself, set those boundaries with that inner critic because you're right, shame is not a motivator for positive change. No matter how we think that it is as a society, shouting at and berating yourself or other people to do better isn't going to motivate us to make that change. And I think there's something about letting go of the idea of needing to be special or letting go of the idea that you don't have to decide that you don't want to achieve anymore. Like achieving's not a bad thing, but knowing that you can achieve imperfectly and it not be your main driver. I think ultimately, if you're trying to achieve to make yourself feel a certain way, overall, you won't. One thing that I wanted to share is so much about specialness and feeling important to me was also tied to my meaning and purpose in the world. And so it can get quite existential for me. I saw a therapist trained in philosophical and existentialism as a therapeutic modality. There were so many things that was super helpful. But a task that I was given that if anybody listening might find interesting to do was it sounds a bit morbid, but write your own obituary. So at the end of your life, think about what ultimately would you like people to say about you? Do you want someone to stand up there and essentially just read your CV of achievements? Does that say anything about you? Or would you be wanting them to talk about your way of being in the world, like how you were as a person? And that's the part that matters most. And the phrase that then came up for me at that time, which I genuinely thought I'd fully invented and was going to claim before I realized it's a very well known phrase. I just thought it was mine. But I remember I said, I'm not a human doing, I'm a human being. It's about how you are in the world, not what you do in the world that really matters.
Mm.
Unfortunately, human doing, human being was already coined. Sadly, I thought it was mine. I was going to claim it. But yeah, that's something that I also try to hold on to. It's about being in the world rather than doing in the world.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that there are parts of me that are squirming just imagining my answer to that, or how far I feel like I'm too far away from what I would want people to say about me. And I think that's because actually what we really value is not necessarily what society says it values.
Mm.
there is so much emphasis on what your CV. There is so much emphasis on your CV. Yeah, but I know I really like that. I might go away and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've ever felt like your intelligence or self awareness should have protected you from struggle, it doesn't work that way. You're not broken because you can't outthink your feelings.
Being smart doesn't mean you should have it all figured out. It just means you've got a really articulate inner critic. You're allowed to need help, softness, and rest.
So if you've been judging yourself for knowing better but still feeling lost, maybe the work isn't to know more, it's to let yourself be human. Next time, we're talking about being too festive to be fine, the glitter-covered chaos of Christmas, from gift guilt and party pressure to actually trying to enjoy it without losing your mind.
But for now, we will leave you with this. What would it look like to stop trying to be the clever one who copes and just let yourself be the messy, imperfect human who feels?
That's all from us today. If this episode made you feel a bit less alone, the best way to help us reach more people is to subscribe, rate the podcast, and follow Too Much Apparently on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Those simple clicks help other sensitive humans find us when they need it most. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon.